Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we are here to talk about impact investing. And this is a very important topic, just like the rest that we talk about here on VCTV, but this goes after a few different angles than most of the topics we talk about. And again, impact investing. We've talked a little bit about this here, whether it's around sustainability, whether it's around energy and alternatives, whether it's around climate change, or so much more. We've talked about this, but today we've brought some of the best and brightest from around the world to go a level deeper. Talk to us about what the current state is of impact investing, what impact investing means to them and also to different regions around the world. It's an important topic and something that's going to be very, very relevant to us in the coming decades ahead as we look to where things are moving and shaping and changing right now in different industries, technologies, and regions around the world, as we always talk about here on VCTV. And so with that, a big thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in today. We are in third quarter, Q3, quarter three, however you want to define it. We are in the slingshot towards the end of the year. This is an important time for both investors and entrepreneurs. And so that's why we continue to talk about topics like today's impact investing, because if you're an investor, this is the time to know what is happening as so much is changing. We've got new product launches, we've got new technologies that are being introduced and great companies out there raising. And for entrepreneurs, it's good for you to start looking at who is investing in your category if you're not already. And again, you've got some right here to reference, and we bring more to you every single day here on VCTV. But also, it's a great time to get inside the head of us as investors to understand how we think and how we see industries shaping and shifting to prepare yourself for the year ahead and your team. And with that, investors, if you'd like to be on a show like today, do reach out to the LATOKEN team, Elena, Maria, and or myself. We'd love to find the right show for you to share your thoughts and insights. And entrepreneurs, we'd love to have an opportunity to have you on our virtual stage to pitch us as investors, along with our live audience, your project and your company as well. And with that, a big thank you to Elena, to Maria, and to the entire LATOKEN team for making VCTV possible every single day, multiple times a day, even when it's not Q3, third quarter, or the end of the year sprint. We are highly appreciative of each and every one of them that make this happen on your screen, your device, anywhere in the world. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we're going to be talking again about impact investing today. And let's go ahead and welcome each and every one of our guests. So Alejandra, welcome to the show. First time with Elena, Maria, and myself here. It's a pleasure to have you. If you can, a little intro and a little background for everybody.
Sure, of course. Happy to be here, and thank you for the invitation. So I'm Alejandra. I'm connecting from Mexico City, and I work at Adobe Capital, which is an impact investing fund based out of Mexico City. And I mean, I started being very interested in this sector a while ago while I was working at a traditional bank. So I worked first for about 5 years in a JP Morgan here as well in Mexico City, and that's where I found out about impact investing. So I did a lot of research about it, and then I decided that I wanted to go all in impact investing. So I decided to take sort of a break and do a master's degree in social entrepreneurship, literally because I wanted to have this other side of investments, which was the social aspect or the environmental aspect, which I didn't have, the experience before. So I combined with that both knowledges of finance and then the social and also the environmental side of it. And then I started, I came back to Mexico City, and then I started working for Adobe Capital for about 3 years now. So, that's a little bit of my background, and just to let you know a bit on what we do in Adobe Capital. Precisely, we invest in social environmental enterprises, which are already in a sort of a early growth stage. And we have two funds. In the first fund we deployed all the capital only in Mexico, but then for the second fund we are expanding our reach, and we are also investing in other key countries in Latin America.
Wonderful. So with that fund, just to clarify, so you're still focused on Latin, the greater Latin America area, right?
Exactly.
With fund two? Awesome. Wonderful. And I know there's a lot happening in that space. We're going to talk about that, but entrepreneurs, take note. Latin America, focused, impact investing right here. Alejandra. All right. Thank you so much. And Patrick, welcome to the show as well. Little intro, little background.
Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick Kernel. I'm a partner at Perform Investimentos. Prior to that, I used to work for private equity invested companies, doing all the kind of financial roles. And after my MBA, I decided to join management consulting for a few years. And in 2015, I decided to join Performa and move back a little bit more to the buy side and both sell side of the investment cycle. Performa, we had a growth fund, and we are one of the first environmental funds here in Brazil. The fund actually was created in 2013. I joined in 2015, and since then, portfolio grew quite well. We grew almost 50% per year. We had a few exits at the beginning of this year, so timing was crucial to exit on February. Returning almost 40% on equity and 20% on debt. And this year, the portfolio companies are skyrocketing. It shows that Brazil, we can invest in ESG impact companies, having great resilience. We are growing more than 100% this year. Our fund is fully invested, and we are aiming to do a new fundraising starting next month. For Brazil and growth companies as well.
Awesome. Welcome. Welcome. This is exciting. We're focusing on a little bit more on Latin America and South America today. This is awesome. All right. Dion, I apologize. That kind of took you for a loop because you are not focused necessarily on those two areas, but you do have a little bit of interest with some of your areas of expertise, as I know there's a lot happening in Latin America and South America. But with that, I'll let you give the introduction to yourself and welcome back to the show.
Sure. Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. So I'm Dion DeLoof. I am based in San Francisco, and our fund is Alpha Impact 8. And I won't stray too far away. My partner, we have two partners, myself and another, Carlos Ochoa, is from Mexico City. And we have about a third of our investments that are in, or perhaps now half, that are in LATAM markets. But we do focus US globally. All of our companies, I suppose the difference, are headquartered in the U.S., but many are focused or have kind of co-headquarters, Mexico City, Brazil, and a few other locations. But we're an early stage. When I think of us, or a quick descriptor for AI Alpha Impact 8 is early stage fund, similar to Patrick. We started 3.5 years ago, almost fell into impact, I like to say, by default or without intentionality. But we looked at our portfolio and said they're all really high impact companies, and let's then pursue that further. So the current fund is fully deployed. So similar to Patrick, we're raising the next fund coming up here a little bit closer to Christmas time, around October, maybe early November for the next fund. So the current fund has 10 companies invested in it, primarily in the first fund, fintech. We've looked at green tech. We have a life sciences company as well, but all are diversified, founded companies, and all are high impact. And one is, you mentioned a plug, and I'll do it more later, shamelessly, but one, Lennox Park Solutions, that we invested in about a year ago. Their entire mission is to score funds for an impact score, and their clients at the moment are U.S. public pension funds, and they just signed up two of the largest, New York Common and CalSTRS. So just looking at how do you actually score impact is a rapidly developing and a passion area, and a shameless plug and investment area for us as well. So happy to be here.
Wonderful, happy to have you. And it's not just scoring as well, it's also what defines impact. I think each of you have already brought this up, and Vicus will probably continue this point, is how important impact investing is, and just impact in general, and how it touches all different types of industries, and how technology plays a role in all of that. So there's the scoring of it, but then also how you define it. And we'll come back to that in just a moment. Vicus, to you, a little intro, a little background. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Kyle. My name is Vikas Dutt. I'm one of the founding partners of Saracap Ventures, which is a US and Singapore-based early stage technology fund. We've just completed the fundraise for our second fund. We just announced our close for a 50 million fund just last month. So we are in a lucky position to be high on cash and looking for investments at this time. I would say that while we were not set up as an impact investment fund, but actually this came in as a request or a demand from our investors, especially the new generation investors that came on board, with large wealth coming to them from their previous generation. They are just not satisfied with the financial return that one can provide. They want to know what good is their money doing in the world. And when we studied more on this area, we found that impact investment is just not about creating good in the world. It actually makes more financial sense because the returns are better. The world is moving towards that area. And I read a recent Credit Suisse report which said that in the next 5 years, about 90% of the X trillion dollars in the financial industry will be via these 17 UN SDGs. So overall, we think the world is moving towards this area. We have made some recent investments in this area, and I'll talk more about them, in subsequent, discussions. But overall, very excited to be here, Kyle, and looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, well, congratulations on the closing of the fund as well. I threw some emojis out there, but not sure if you saw them, but nonetheless, congratulations. And actually, let's go ahead and jump right in, and we'll let you kick it off as you teed that up nicely. Is what do you see as the current state of impact investing? I mean, you've been studying this, you've gotten word from your current and future LPs that this is something they want to be a part of. So how are you seeing the current state of impact investing as it is today?
Yeah, I would say that, while there are multiple ways in which people look at impact investing, and people mix up words like ESG, environment, impact, across all over. But I would say that, in early days, it was just avoidance of, areas which were non-green or areas which were harmful to the environment. Now people have become much more active moving towards that area. I'd just like to talk about one particular investment that we just did in this area. There's like a $2.7 trillion gap in Southeast Asia in financing of small businesses. Essentially, these are businesses that generate employment on the ground, that generate employment in priority sectors, give women employment, create employment in poor areas. But banks don't finance them because they don't have sufficient credit record, or they don't have sufficient assets to meet the requirements of a bank to be profitable for 3 years. However, these businesses are cash generating and they need money. And they've been taking money from these new age, fintech providers, but they themselves are short of money. So essentially, the tech platform that we invested in connects large institutions particularly in Europe, who are looking to deploy money in this area to last mile lenders. So this technology plugs this gap in providing institutional financing to these last mile lenders in a large scale. And that's a core problem that these institutions have been facing. In dollar terms, it's generating, double digit returns for our investors. The risk is quite spread out. We are seeing that move quite well. So that's one of the recent investments we have done. But broadly, more institutions, more investors are asking, and generally we've started focusing on this area quite actively.
Wonderful. And real quick follow-up, it's been mentioned a few times on VCTV, but also just for our audience who may not know what it means, ESG. What is ESG? If you could just share a few blips on that.
Yeah, so ESG essentially means environment, social, and governance. And those are big themes in the investment world now. If you look at solar energy, that creates a good positive, environmental impact as against fossil fuels. So those can be considered as green projects or environmentally sensitive projects. In addition, social and governance are two big themes on how we are able to impact the right sector of the society, which actually needs financial support, as well as where they can build entrepreneurial ventures, generate employment, create local good. So those are some themes that emerge from ESG, and that's been a very broad guideline that's there. But UN has come up with very specific sustainable development goals, which are much more widely adopted and which are being mapped to more and more investments that are happening.
Wonderful, and thank you so much for going and expanding on that as well. Dion, to you, what are you seeing as the current state of impact investing and how you and your fund are looking at it?
Well, it's you mentioned it a little bit earlier. It's not just the scoring of impact, but what do you look at? So you started. I mean, when the UN goals and 19 different criteria were originally formed and released, I think a lot of it, people were putting a lens on it from a green tech perspective. I mean, that's really where impact initially started. And what I look at today, and that's still obviously with climate change and what have you, still extremely applicable. But, when I look at, and I'll put a lens on it from a US public pension, where a lot of money now is coming towards impact and impact focused funds, they're then saying, okay, well, how do we, qualify, quantify who really is an impact fund? I've seen a bunch of funds that, as an example, for years were in petrochem and have large AUM and that sort of area. And regardless of how you feel, all of a sudden they're cranking out impact funds because impact funds are hot and where some of the money is flowing. And so some of the developments that I'm really seeing that are very, very interesting is, outside of, or I should say in addition to green tech, is how are you measuring impact if you're a fintech? And then not just is the board diversified and what's the societal impact that they may be having, but can you actually capture in and this is the real trick, in a credible way what the societal impact actually is. And now you have a number of companies and consulting companies that have recently come up in the last year, maybe 2 years, where their entire business is I mentioned earlier, scoring or trying to quantify and grade, if you will, some of the fund managers, and then also looking at, on the public pension side, being able to go out to the public and say, okay, of their AUM that they release to various managers, is that in a credible way an actual impact investment? So I think that's the next big wave in impact, is how do you credibly capture what the impact is and who's actually making the difference, rather than just chasing a what I might call a hotter investment area in the last couple of years.
I think you're spot on. I see Alejandra shaking her head. I think we're going to hear a little bit same from her. And Patrick, I want to come to you next, and Alejandra, we're going to close out with you on this topic. But Patrick, what are you seeing as the current state of impact investing?
I think what Dion and Vikas already mentioned works quite well on a global side. For us here in Brazil, I think we are one step above that. I think that the pure impact is the derivative of the ESG. Main reason why I think Brazil it's the main exports. Brazil is a commodity player. We have agro, we have oil, we have mining. Therefore, we believe that, and our thesis is the following: we are doing ESG with impact monitoring. So when you look at ESG and all the impact that, let's say, water can bring, agro can bring, it's a huge potential to Brazil. If you put more productivity in the agribusiness in Brazil, you have almost $3 trillion of GDP increment. That's a third of our current GDP. When you look at water, we have more than 10% of the potable water in the world. So 45% of the cities don't have sewage or clean water, potable water. and you have about 40% of that is fraud or lost on the process. So for us, we are one step above. We're looking at as more ESG play, monitor impact. We believe that can bring more capital to Brazil, even more because of all the green potential that Brazil has, and more because of the demographic that Brazil also has. We saw a lot of educated people come into the market, and our average age is still around 33 years old, against 40 years old on average on US and China. So we believe that mass of new a new income class that is surging, educated, will improve a lot of the GDP per capita, and thus create a lot of potential and positive impact as a consequence.
And it sounds like you're seeing similar things to Vicus as well around that younger generation or demographic wanting to see those types of things focused on, right? Want to see their return beyond just financial, but also environmentally.
Exactly.
We'll just sum it up as that. I may be a little off, but I think that's kind of the point.
Exactly. But that's a process.
It is. Well, and it's not just a a process and in terms of hierarchy, but also where you start laying those bets, right? And not to take away from Alejandro, but you've got ESG as we've talked about. You also have industries, you have regions, and then you have technology and how all of those are playing a role. And that's a long cycle. It's not just a flip of a switch and respectfully like you deploy an app. It's much more. It's much greater than that, right? Some of these things can take decades, as we've seen. And I'll pause there. Alejandro, I want to turn it to you. I apologize if I took anything away from your comments, but I do want to come to you around your view of the current state of impact investing.
Sure. I think I agree with what has been said already. I think, at least in Mexico and also in the rest of Latin America, the impact investing sector has grown exponentially. I mean, even the knowledge of the term impact investing and the term of ESG is now more socialized than 3 or 5 years ago. So I think the change from 2 or 3 years ago to now is huge. I mean, having said that, I think it's very important to also spread more knowledge on these terms, because as Vicus I think mentioned, ESG is not the same as deep impact or impact investing per se. So, but there are like different asset classes, and I think these different asset classes or impact classes need to be more socialized in terms of the risk that investors want to have in their investments, and the impact, the level of impact that they want to have. So, I mean, just to say an example, for the ESG component would be probably in terms of impact, a bit less impact, but maybe less risky. And then if you go to like the other extreme of the asset classes, would be that probably investing directly in social enterprises or environmental enterprises might be more risky, but probably you can get more social return or environmental return out of it. But definitely, and as I think Dion mentioned, now that when the UN launched the SDGs, or the Social Development Goals, it is when, I mean, I think a lot of players started to hear more about sustainable investments or responsible investments, as well as impact investing. So, I mean, I think that it is definitely growing. And the other thing that has happened in Mexico is that we've seen a lot of capital mobilizing. So in terms that now we're seeing more family offices that were allocating 100% of their portfolios to traditional investments, and now they're turning into impact investing and saying, okay, I'm going to allocate a certain percentage of my portfolio into impact investing just to see how it plays out. So what we say, and our thesis in Adobe Capital for investors, is that investors don't have to choose between return and generating a social environmental impact. So, and really, trying to prove that impact investing is real. So based on that, we've seen more traditional investors now allocating a bit more of their portfolio into impact investing. And something very important is that, for this sector to grow in Mexico, but I think, across the whole world, is to have more involvement of the traditional players as well as the government. So one thing that we've seen now is that now pension funds in Mexico are able to invest in impact investing, something that it wasn't previously very it wasn't seen as opportunity, or it wasn't something that pension funds were doing, but now it's something that they are seeing. So it's another reason or another example of how the sector has been growing, both in terms of dollars invested in impact investing, but also, on the other side of the coin, we've seen more and more generation of pipeline of these types of enterprises.
That's a good point. So more are getting involved, which is adding support to the overall opportunity, which is great to hear. And I want to come to each of you around the areas of opportunity that you're seeing locally. But before I do, Dion, I'm going to come to you for something specific, and that's around fintech and financial inclusion. So where are you seeing fintech play a role? And everyone else, feel free to comment on this, but I want to come to you first, Dion. Where do you see fintech playing a role right now, or opportunities in impact investing?
Yeah, no, thanks, Kyle. And before I even come on that, I'll just add, I use a phrase often, especially in conversations with the public pension funds: if it's not developing, or if it's not generating alpha, it's not generating impact. I think it's not sustainable for that company. So if I think Alejandra's point on, it's not a choice of, is it impact or is it return or alpha? It has to be both, and the returns are showing that from the impact companies for sure. But yeah, in fintech, I think what's driving, I mentioned how heavy, at least in the current fund, we are in fintech. Ironically, the fastest growing markets are the LATAM markets for our portfolio companies. But I think where the real opportunity is with 5G, low orbit satellites now, and we're starting to look at second and third world countries where everyone is starting to have and a lot of places already do, a smartphone in their hand. Sort of a long overarching, but that high impact is to say, we're looking at, in some areas, certainly not second world, but areas of Mexico, Chile, Argentina, elsewhere, where the services of kind of a common example I use of the days of, even if someone was in the US and they wanted to Western Union money to another country, and you send the equivalent of $100 and a third of that or more disappears in fees, is over. So, or should be. And so you now have companies that, are developing apps and what have you, which are getting in the hands of those that have never had a smartphone in their hand before. And all of a sudden they're saying, you know what? You can send small denominations. If you have bolivars and you want to turn that into euros or what have you, and you've got various companies that are using cryptocurrencies or others to do that exchange, as long as there's high liquidity and doing it very quickly, and all of a sudden you can send, use a $100 transfer for 45 cents equivalent. And so the big wave that I see, and the real opportunity, is all of the different services. Fintech is so broad, but bill payment. If you're in Europe and you have a Santander or HSBC account, and you just assume you're going to pay all your bills by logging into your bank, and you do that. But obviously most of the world doesn't have that. But now you have companies that are saying, hey, here's an API. I can put a white label bill payment platform. I'll put it on your phone. I can all of a sudden give you that ability. I'm going to have markets and a corner stand in different areas where they're saying, hold it. You mean that instead of me paying the person that's delivering my Coca-Cola, and they're the intermediary and effectively acting as a bank, we can cut them out, drop your fees, and now you have access to those types of services. Incredible. And then the numbers are huge. So without taking too much time and waxing on, is the companies that we look at and where we get most excited is, not the way that I was fortunate to grow up, if you will, in the US or others in Europe or LATAM and first world countries. I go, take your world lens off of that, where you already have all of those services and you think everyone does, and put your lens on where they don't have any of those services. And can you do it in volume and do it very, very cheaply? And can you win market share in Nigeria and in other countries very quickly. And then the social impact, access to microloans, bill payments, paying your bills, transferring money, all of these things that have really, really high fees and always have for the underserved populations. All of a sudden you're looking at those fees. And when you can drop those fees down to what I would say is something that is much, much more reasonable and less, if you will, predatory lending and those type of fees, that's incredible when you do that at volume. So that's why our focus on fintech and has been, where we just see a number of companies, okay, they're headquartered in the US, but they're serving these global markets, and we quickly see the change that they can do. And then they don't have to spend a lot of money, largely speaking, if the offering works, not in every case, but they're not spending a lot of money on marketing. We're looking at some micro lenders and others that it's word of mouth, and that spreads very quickly because in the populace, the consumer goes, okay, if I'm paying a 30% or a 300% annual interest rate, and you can all of a sudden give me that for 15, that message is going to spread itself.
Absolutely, and it's a great point. And Vikas, I want to come to you next. I want to focus a little bit on India in Southeast Asia, if we could. Where are you seeing the areas of opportunity around impact investing? And again, we know that encompasses a lot, but maybe one or two areas that you're seeing as opportunities that people should be paying attention to as we approach the lightning round. And then Patrick and Alejandro, I'm going to come to you both as well on a similar question. So Vikas, I'll start with you. There you go.
I think as Dion mentioned that banks traditionally have made a lot of money on fees, and those are big areas that we think will get disrupted. Also, banking was meant for people who always had the money. It was never meant for people who need the money. So traditionally, people, in middle class have always struggled to gain access to credit from these institutions, primarily because of lack of credit history. Now, what digitization has done is created a digital footprint for each person or each individual in the world. And this digital footprint can essentially be used as a credit rating for these for these people. And a lot of these fintechs are actually working through this data to see how they can be provided credit. And banks traditionally are at a back foot against these fintech players. So coming back to the question, I think the fintech has a major role to play in creating impact, particularly in emerging economies like India, Mexico, Brazil, where people may not have a bank account, may not have a credit score, but will have a mobile phone. And today, just by mobile phone and social media data, you can credit rate a person without actually going into the financials of the person. So I think India has seen X number of startups in the fintech space. And I was just joking with somebody that today you cannot find a name which doesn't start with capital or K or any fintech name that you can think of. There is a company by that name in India. But again, these companies are struggling because of lack of access of capital. So while institutions continue to focus and say that we want to lend to MFIs and there is some priority sector lending there, but the middle class, there still continues to be, like I mentioned, there's almost a $2.7 trillion gap. I think there is a good long way before that credit gap is fulfilled. But I think the fintechs have a great role to play and they're doing a good job there.
It's a common theme, fintech. I feel like we might hear it one or two more times, but thank you, Vikas. Patrick, to you, looking at Brazil and maybe greater South America, where are you seeing areas of opportunity around impact investing that the audience should be paying attention to, whether they're on the investing side or on the entrepreneur side?
I think looking more specifically to Brazil, agribusiness for once. We are the bread and basket of the world. We believe that health tech and well-being, only a quarter of the population has insurance, health insurance, etc. And with demographic aging, it will need better service and cheaper services. unlike US and Europe, the gravity, the center of gravity in Brazil is still the doctor and special clinics. So for sure, we're going to see that. Renewables, of course, because of what Brazil can provide in terms of water, solar, and renewables energy. So I think there's a lot of potential. I think in general, when you look at a country like Brazil and staying away from politics here, Brazil, I think the public sector deployed the basic infrastructure, and the capital now is doing, and the private capital now is doing two things. One is privatization, concession, and bringing it to the private hands. And the other one, VCs, private equities, is making things more efficient, things better. And whatever you do basically in Brazil and in Latin America, because of the discrepancy and the Brazil, in the last decade, we brought 100 million people of a new income class that emerged in a 210 million population. So how do you serve that? How do you bring services, products that are designed for them? Everything we'll do, from agro, renewables, making energy cheaper, financial services for sure, revolving credit card, interest rates is still 300% in Brazil. So put that to SMEs and the population, the favelas, you will unlock a lot of potential, a lot of capital, a lot of return, and a lot of impact for sure.
I see everyone shaking their heads. And Alejandra, I'm going to come to you last here before the lightning round. From Mexico to Greater LATAM, where are you seeing the areas of opportunity in addition to what's been mentioned already?
Yeah, so I mean, to not repeat the same things, because I think this is a very similar situation from Brazil, from what Patrick just mentioned. But so the objective of impact investing is to bring basic products or services to the population who don't have access to these basic services, right? So how do you do that is a question. So I think the opportunity here is to invest in tech-based solutions, because I mean, obviously in traditional sector as well, but in impact investing, what you want is to bring a solution which is scalable, so it can reach, the more population that is possible. So we think that with tech-based solution, this is what the best way or the most efficient way for this to happen. So we, for example, in Adobe Capital, we're sector agnostic. Meaning that we invest in every sector that has the potential to create a positive social environmental impact. So we are looking into education in Mexico, and I think the rest of Latin America. It's a huge opportunity, because it's something that is lacking in so much, and then it turns into an opportunity. Also, affordable housing. In Mexico, it's really unfortunate, the situation, but there's a lot of people without a decent and safe home. So I think that it's also a huge opportunity. And also healthcare. There's I would say a lack of access to healthcare services. So I mean, all these opportunities, if are addressed with tech-based solutions, then the reach is way deeper, and definitely it can bring a lot of innovation to address these very pressing social challenges.
I think you're bringing up some great points. Everyone's shaking their head again. I think we're all in synergy here around these areas. As well. And as we come to the lightning round, I want to come to each of you for your closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you? We've talked quite a bit at depth around some of these areas, but I know there's more to be talked about, and we're definitely going to have each of you back on to go deeper, not just in impact, but some of these core areas that you mentioned, whether it's healthcare, it's energy and sustainability, it's finance, education, et cetera. There's more to talk about in each of these areas, in not just your regions where you focus, but globally as well. And so, Vigas, I want to come to you first and foremost. Any closing thoughts that you have, and then where can the audience find you online to continue the conversation?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, www.seracap.com. to send us leads, interest, partnerships. We are open to everything. I would say that the area is still nascent. While the world is moving fast towards that, there are still some basics that are under discussion, like, what is the methodology of calculating impact? And everybody you talk to has a different methodology. So some of these areas will get streamlined. I believe we will have, rating agencies like, Moody's, Standard and Poor, who would actually be giving more, ratings. There are already, companies that give these ratings, but these are not standardized. So some of these aspects will get streamlined, and people will be more interested to know as to my specific dollars helped whom, and how many people helped, how many jobs it helped create, or what did it do. So I would say that it's a journey. It's just the beginning. The next 10 years are for impact investing. We believe people or companies that are not in that area will be left behind. They will find it difficult to attract money. They will find it difficult to attract talent, capital, and vendors, partners, everybody. So I would say that anybody and everybody should jump on this bandwagon and actually work aggressively towards achieving some of these goals as set by UN.
Absolutely. And again, congratulations on the closing of the new fund as well. Patrick, to you, any closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you online?
Sure. So finding us online, we are at www.performainvestimentos.com, or you can look at me, P. Cannell, CANNELL @performainvestment.com. I think that for all of those investors and companies, entrepreneurs that are willing to do impact or ESG investments, I think Brazil it's one of the places to be right now. Mainly two reasons. One is, if you look at FX, which is one of the main factors for investors, it is adjusted on the long term by inflation. So of course you have ups and downs, and you need to find the correct timing in order to make an investment. But if you're willing to invest in a country that is representative in the global economy, that has a continental size, a GDP of more than $1 trillion, a population greater than 200 million, a high tech adoption of more than 40% penetration, you'll get a short list of basically three countries: Brazil, US, and China. So if Brazil, with all those characteristics, doesn't play an important role in the global economy, I don't know what to say. I think Brazil is one of the places to be right now.
There you go. Dion, to you. Quick closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you online?
Sure. Well, you can find me. So our website is www.ai8ventures.com. And my email is first initial, my first name, last name, at ai8ventures.com. But I agree with the previous comments. I mean, what I would say is, if you're a company, to add, that is out raising right now, even if you haven't gone to market as impact, but you have high impact, really make sure in your pitch decks now and what have you, because everyone really is paying attention here, that you have at least one slide, or however you call out what your impact is. It's going to help you raise. And I would tell you, the more you can do that in a quantifiable and credible way, so people just don't go, okay, I can make anything impact. No, if you really are having an impact, get right to the point. And even if you can't measure all of it, but you know that it's happening, at least lay that out. It's an important part of your pitch deck. And I think on the fund side, for funds like us, I would agree with what Vika said. It's nascent. Certainly US side and the public pensions, there's more and more that are very interested, and they're setting actual goals of how much they want to allocate to impact funds. So it's very important, if you're raising from them on the fund side, to know who are the ones that are passionate and are actually using their consultants to deploy real AUM, and who is just still sort of at that learning stage. So you don't spend trying to raise your money and spin your wheels where probably deployments aren't happening. And lastly is, again, if you're not developing alpha, you're not developing impact. Thanks, Kyle.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Alejandra, I apologize, but we have quick closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you, because we're at the top of the hour.
Yep, sure. So first of all, you can find more information about Adobe Capital in www at adobecapital.org, or if you want to contact me directly through LinkedIn. And then in closing thoughts, I mean, I think I agree with everything that has been said. I think the area of impact investing has just started, and the objective in the end of impact investing is to make it mainstreaming impact investing. So I myself right now, I made a lot of differences between the traditional investing sector and the impact investing. So I think the goal of everybody who is in this sector is to finally not have to make those differences, and say, if we're investing, we have to consider from since like the first time or the first screening, that it has to generate some sort of impact, or it has to have some good good practices and policies revolving around social or environmental practices.
Absolutely. And again, thank you all very much for sharing your thoughts and insights. Tons to dive deeper into, but I think this was a great conversation to have for those that are tuning in as well. And again, thank you each for dedicating your time today. And to your audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe down in the corner, give us a thumbs up. Do reach out if you'd like to be on a show like today. Also, a big thank you to Elena, Maria, and to the entire LA Token team for making VCTV possible every single day. Thank you, Dion. We'll be back here tomorrow with more episodes, double episodes every day of VCTV to share with you the latest that's happening in technology, industries, and regions around the world. With that, I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host. You can find me everywhere on social media and online at Kyle Ellicott. We'll be back here tomorrow.